I was a bit of a target for bullies, and that was quite difficult because I always wanted to do the right thing. When you get bullied, you think, oh, why am I getting bullied? I'm doing the right thing. The biggest problem people have really is just the negative beliefs about themselves, not being sure about their good qualities, not being certain perhaps how something might land when they try something out. And I think a coach can really just be there as a partner to help somebody work through various issues in their life and just find the best way forward really with the resources that somebody has. The key to success really is knowing that different people need different keys because people are different.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the ADHD Eaves Drop, where you can be a butterfly on the wall and listen in on my conversations. And who am I? I'm Janine Van Stee. I'm an ADHD life coach who works with people to help them better manage their ADHD and live the best lives that they can. So if you're interested in that, my information is down below. Give me an email, shoot me an email, or give me a call and we'll chat. In the meantime, I have a wonderful guest with us today here from London. And as I've said before, I've met so many fabulous people over the past 3 years or so. And Paul is one of those people over in London, and he's an ADHD life coach there. And previously, in his previous life, he was at a leadership level in the music department at the university level and has now totally shifted his life to the ADHD life coaching career area. So this is going to be an interesting one because that's a big shift. So welcome, Paul. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you, Janine. I'm really pleased to be here.
Awesome. So I always like to start out with, and the fact that you were a music person before this and at the university, we've got to get into how you've made this transition. But I always like to start out with, you are a late diagnosis, just like me. I was diagnosed when I was 50.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about that whole thing for you, because the process in the UK is not the same as in the US, nor the same in the Caribbean. So tell me more.
Yeah. Okay. So it's quite an interesting story. Getting diagnosed. It's a bit of a surprise. I always felt I was different and knew that I was different. I'd put that down to being a musician and very creative. Coming from a working class family, I thought, well, yeah, that's just tensions and differences between that. But I think when I was 48, I was in a relationship that was a little bit turbulent, and we went for couples counselling, and the counsellor said to my partner, said, oh, because he was talking quite a lot, he said, oh, have you thought that you might have ADHD? And she described to him the symptoms of ADHD and what it's like. And I thought, oh, shit, that's me too. So at the time, in the UK, there's a National Health Service where you are supposed to be able to get a diagnosis through that. But there was a very, very long waiting list. I ended up paying privately at a private clinic to get a diagnosis. But I couldn't afford to keep paying for the private psychiatrist fees to get all of the medication, etc. So in the UK, I could shift that over to the National Health Service, which is a bit of an involved process. And since then, we've had medication shortages and titration problems, and I've had high blood pressure problems, which meant that I came off the medication and I've not been on it for a year and a half. So I'm looking forward to going back on it when I finally go back to the doctor and get back on the waiting list for the titration process. So that's a very complicated story. So it's been frustrating in many ways, not being able to get the sort of medication that I might need. But it's been interesting adjusting to life without the medication and trying to focus myself just through other means.
I can only imagine. I'm curious though, because so you have national medicine, right?
Yeah.
And then you have private practices too?
Yeah. So there's the the government provides a sort of a national level of service, but it's often waiting lists for that. And yeah, if
So
it's
do
something
certain
to,
practitioners work for national and certain practitioners work for private?
yeah, and some of them work for both. Yeah,
It's very interesting to me because, like, for us, everything, we don't have a national per se healthcare system. We have ways of getting insured through national means, but yeah, we don't have that. And so it's interesting. I thought that's all you had. I didn't realize that there was also private practice as well. That's
yeah,
interesting. Okay.
yeah, yeah. It's I think at the moment, because as with a lot of things around the world, there's a shortage of funds for certain things, and yeah, the NHS, the National Health Service, needs a little bit of repairing and tender loving care to bring it back up to standard.
You may not know this answer, but when I talked to Rachel in Ireland, you guys are both UK. So would she be under that same national?
I think that the Republic of Ireland, I think, is as a separate government. That's still part of Europe.
Okay.
So they have some health provision there, but it's not the same
She
as our
said the
National
same
Health
thing. She
Service.
had like a 2-year waiting list or something like that, and she went to somebody else. So that makes sense. So, but she went to somebody in the UK,
Mhm. Ah, yeah,
probably a
right.
private practice.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so complicated. I fortunately, my psychiatrist looked at me one day and said, "You have ADHD," and I said, "Oh, okay." So
It's
when you
quite,
got diagnosed, you were 48. Is that what you
yeah,
said? Okay, when you
yeah.
were 48, where were you in your life? Were you in the depths of the leadership position at the university?
Yeah, I was managing a, a period of transition where we went from an old department structure with certain degree programs to a new one. So it's quite an intense period at work, lots of pressure. Um, and yeah, this news was, it certainly gave me a lot to think about. And it explained a lot. And I don't think at the time I fully appreciated how much ADHD had affected my life previously. Now I can look back, even from being a little child, all of the sort of my life experiences, I think they've all been coloured by ADHD. I was always very lively as a child. My mum has some early like film cine reels of me, sort of when my mum had to have reins on me because I kept running off. So she had to keep me on reins like a lead.
So at this point, with my brand new computer, my mic decided that it needed to switch itself off and switch on to a different mic. So I apologize for the sound quality after this on my mic. Your leash, baby, and safety first, right?
Yes.
Because you know that people with ADHD tend to shorten their lives with accidents and such. So your
Yes.
mom was pretty smart.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I didn't think anything of it until being diagnosed, and I thought, oh, that's the reason why. I was always the emotional child, lots of ups and downs, uh, very creative, had a million and one things going on in my brain. Yeah, I think it's for me as a child, it's the emotional sort of ups and downs. And my parents always used to say, "Oh, we don't know where we got you from because that's so different," and that left a bit of a lasting effect on me for a while. So yeah, I didn't feel quite the same as my family, um, but things resolved and sort of relationships improved later on. Both my parents are dead now, but
Are you the only one with ADHD in your family?
um, I'm the only one who's diagnosed with it. But I think my mum, I think, had it, and a year or two after I was diagnosed with ADHD, my brother was diagnosed with ASD, autism, And I think now it's very clear to me that, oh, yeah, my father was very autistic, which is why I used to disagree with him so much. And we had a lot of conflict because I was the very lively one who liked lots of different things, lots of change, and he liked things to be very regular and regimented and just so. So, yeah, we had a difficult relationship.
So I was interested to see how that upbringing maybe helped or maybe hindered you in your ADHD, because you were not raised in a family where everybody was saying, let's play music. So tell me about your upbringing, because it's interesting.
I think my parents were very caring, very loving, but didn't quite know how to handle me or to. I was always very good at school, and I didn't have to put any effort in, and that that has its pluses and it has its minuses. I think it meant that I didn't have to worry about schoolwork very much. But it also meant I was a bit of a target for bullies because with my strange personality and just being able to do certain things, that made me a bit of a target. And that was quite difficult because I always wanted to do the right thing, and I was told that working hard and studying and getting good grades was the right thing to do. But then when you get bullied, you think, oh, why am I getting bullied? I'm doing the right thing.
I was the over emotional child. I was the crybaby. I was the one who, everybody would be like, you need to calm down, So I'm hearing that from you. And I know how hard it was for me as a girl to be the crybaby and be the over emotional one. Honestly, in the day and age that we were raised in, because I was raised in the 80s, I'm guessing you were raised in the 80s a little bit later, but probably not exactly. And when we were kids, girls being over emotional was just a pain. It's just like, oh, she's so annoying. But boys being over emotional was completely unacceptable.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you experienced?
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, I did go through a very bad period when I was a young teenager. I got very depressed, but didn't really tell anybody about it. I think what helped was when I was 16. I was I auditioned for this specialist music school in Manchester, and I was given a place 16 to 18 years old, which is a very prestigious thing to be given as a scholarship. So my parents hardly had to pay anything to send me there. And that gave me such a different experience of life, such a different environment, that yeah, it got me out of an environment where I wasn't thriving, I think. But I say I wasn't thriving. I mean, I was. There was a really good music department in my local school, and the music department had a wind band. I wrote a piece for the wind band, and the wind band. Another really important part of my childhood. We had an exchange agreement with Germany, some German wind bands. So we'd go to Germany one year, then the German band would come to us, and that really helped see things from a different perspective, see different cultures. So although it's tough in some ways, the school was quite amazing in what it did, just in a working class town. So
I've looked at myself and I've looked at my family, and you said something that I wouldn't say triggered me, but hit home hard. And that is that feeling of not belonging. Like, how did I get born into this family? Because I'm so different than everybody else. And when you said that, I started to tear up a little bit because that is a very familiar feeling for me as well. So, with that heavy note, let's lighten things up a little bit and tell me how you managed to. Okay, so you were in a mining town as a kid, working class family, not really looking for mental disorders, anything like that. Just, hardworking folks, right? And then somehow you ended up in academia. Well,
Mhm.
part of that was probably going to that specialized school,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
and you said school was easy for you. So your ADHD didn't make school hard for you. It didn't make it really that difficult for me either because I just found strategies and coping mechanisms that worked for me.
Mm.
But for a lot of people, it's a huge struggle. Where did you hit the wall? Where did you get to the point where you're like, wait a minute here?
I think, well, I think what got me through my education was my interest in music. And I genuinely, although I don't have any evidence for this, any scientific evidence, I believe that being interested in music and being able to read music and play music from an early age really helped my development and my functioning, my ability to retain information. And that I specialised in music. I did a degree in music, MA and a PhD in music. And it was only with my PhD when I had to submit. I composed some pieces of music and submitted. I had to submit about 20,000 words, but there was so much I wanted to say in typical ADHD fashion. I wanted to be at life, the universe, and everything, sort of music psychology, the whole experience of things. Um, and it took me a long time to write my PhD up. So I studied for 3 years full time, and I was supposed to hand in the year after that, but I didn't hand in for another 5 years, I think. The reason I finally got through it is because a friend helped me out who offered to proofread things for me, but she ended up being more than a proofreader and just helped me focus my thoughts so I could construct the argument that I wanted to make. So when I did submit it, it passed without amendment, which I was pleased about. But now, looking back, I can see, yeah, that's the tedium of sort of doing all of this written work and in an academic fashion was a little bit beyond my ADHD capabilities there. I'm very good at the creative work and developing ideas, but putting them in a written form was quite difficult. And I had to write, well, I wrote about 60,000 words in the end rather than 20,000 words because I had a lot I wanted to say in there. But yeah, I'm pleased I did
You
it. But
probably have that perfectionistic attitude that a lot of us have, and you were like, "It's not good enough yet. It's not good
yeah,
enough yet."
yeah, I think that's definitely something. And one thing I have noticed as well with when I've done well, it's when I've been interested in something and subjects that I haven't been interested in, I've been able to drop and it's not really mattered so much. So I've been fortunate in that way.
What's your instrument of choice?
Um, I think it's the piano now. I started out on the guitar, then I went to the trombone and the piano when I was 11. Also played the recorder. I've worked a lot with music technology as well, keyboards and synthesizers and things and computers. But yeah, I really enjoy playing the piano because you can make a lot of noise with it. And
When I was a kid, took organ, I took piano, and I played in the high school band on, well, essentially trumpet, cornet. You would know what cornets
wow,
are,
yes.
but a lot of people are like, "What's a cornet?" It's a trumpet, just shorter, you know.
So do you feel music helped you with your development?
This is really interesting. My band director was the only person when I was in school who recognized that there was something going on in my brain that was not the same as everybody else's because I kept on getting dinged for not memorizing my music for marching band. And you can't march with a layer all the time, right? So I was working with him after school to try to memorize my music. And finally one day he just threw his hands up in the air and he says, "Fake it. You're going to have to fake it." He says, "I don't know what's going on in your brain, but you can't memorize music." And I'm like, "I know, I've been trying to tell you that." And he said, "There's something not firing right in there." And he was the only person who recognized that there is literally something going on in your brain that doesn't allow for that to happen. Now, if I have the music in front of me, I'm great. But you take that music away, I play whole notes.
Yeah, that sounds familiar to me. I mean, I ended up performing on the piano to quite a high level, recitals of, sort of quite complicated music. But I could never get through a recital from memory, even one piece. It was impossible for me. I had to have the music there, and now I know why. But I always thought it was really strange that I couldn't when everybody else seemed to find it easy to memorize stuff.
Somebody else who has the same problem because I felt so, like, why am I even a marching band? So I became the drum major eventually because you don't have to, remember your part. You just have to count. I could count.
Yeah.
The band director said, finally, something she can do a march at the same time. Well, yes, you've just made me feel so much better as well, just knowing that I'm not the only person who had that issue.
Yeah.
Because people are like, just memorize your dang music.
It's difficult.
No, it's hard. But on the other hand, I believe that music is a lot like another language. And when you can learn to read music, it's like learning another language. And I think that that benefits our brains in neuroplasticity in so many ways. It's also very mathematical. So it helps with mathematical problems and processes. Honestly, I didn't get fractions until I started doing music. And then I was like, oh, now I get what we're talking about here. So I had a lot of benefits from being involved in band and in music growing up, but could not memorize music.
Yeah, I think with music as well, especially playing in bands, as the social integration and working with other people, and you have to be quite disciplined when you're performing a piece of music when other people are involved. You've got to pay attention. You've got to count your bars rest. You've got to play when you need to play, and that requires quite specific bits of attention that ADHD doesn't normally sort of go with. And I think for me, it really boosted that side of my thinking or my behavior, I think.
When I was in high school, especially, I would find a piece of music that I really liked to play. It felt good. And I'm sure you know what I mean when I say it felt good to play it. And so I would hyper focus on it and play it over and over and over again. But if it was a choral or something like that that was really boring, I would be like, I can't practice this to save my life. Did you have that same thing?
For some pieces of music, yeah, it's strange now because I look back and I quite like those pieces of music, but some pieces of music just didn't gel with me at all. And I don't even want to play this, and I really didn't like them. But thankfully, most of the pieces that were played, I actually quite liked and enjoyed. So. It's strange, isn't it, with ADHD, how we can hyper focus on something and just repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, and we never get bored, whereas other things will just bore us to tears straight away.
I couldn't stay with piano because I couldn't practice those scales. But for you, I'm proud of you, man, because I know you've done scales.
I ended up really liking them.
I was just talking to somebody the other day, though, about the fact that I took great notes in high school because I liked the challenge of creating a outline that made sense. And so it's kind of that same thing. It's like, that sounds just terrible. Why would you hyper focus on that? And I'm thinking, why would you like scales? God, how could you like scales? That's funny. We like recognize the fact that you went from this music career, and we know it's a known fact that people with ADHD, there's a lot of us in the arts, and we're wonderful, artistic, creative people. What made you decide to make a switch from music and leading a department to becoming an ADHD life coach?
Yeah, so that's I've been at my previous university probably about 17, 18 years. And I was thinking, might need a bit of a change. I'd worked as a senior manager designing programs and overseeing change, which was it was good experience, and I suppose enjoy is the wrong word. It was work that I found challenging and satisfying because it was challenging. The university sector in the UK, I think over the past few years, has been going through a bit of a down phase when finances are difficult for a lot of universities. So there've been various cutbacks and things like that. my previous university, I've been through 3 rounds of restructurings, and I didn't know whether I had the energy to go through another restructuring.
No.
And when I was diagnosed with ADHD, I started doing some volunteering work for ADHD UK. I found it, when I had some coaching, I found it really valuable. And I thought I'd quite like to do that. And I started to focus my work with students on neurodiversity, supporting different ways of learning, different brains, and I sort of was trying to implement new procedures at the university to help support students with ADHD and autism. And I thought I'd really like to change my career and focus on this and make a bit more of a difference, because there's a lot of people out there who need support in all areas of life, all ages, and there isn't enough support there. So
Good for you. I happen to know one of your clients very well. And what you have done with them is wonderful, wonderful work. And I just wanted to say, as a coach, I have firsthand experience with Paul through this person. And I know that he's a very successful and wonderful coach. So happy to have you step into this career and be so helpful.
Yeah, thank you. That's always nice to hear positive comments. And it's something I really enjoy. I think just one-to-one conversations with people and helping them be a better version of themselves. Because I think that the biggest problem people have really is just the negative beliefs about themselves, not being sure about perhaps their good qualities, not being certain perhaps how something might land when they try something out. And I think a coach can really just be there as a partner to help somebody work through various issues in their life and just find the best way forward, really, with the resources that somebody has. So I'm a big believer in coaching now. I think it's a great thing, and I think more people need to have coaching in their lives.
When we first started our class and we had to coach each other, I was like, this is incredible. How can this work this way? Because it doesn't seem like it should work that well. And yet it does. And I've continued coaching with, some of our classmates. And I know that a lot of people do coaching for a period of time, for a few months, and they get what they need out of it, and they move on, and that is wonderful. But I myself just get so much out of coaching that I probably will have a coach just because I want a coach, because it helps so much. I can come and say, this is what I'm dealing with. Help me figure it out. Help me think about it in a clearer way, because my emotions are getting in the way of me thinking about this in a logical way. And I find that assistance is great. But also in coaching, we teach people how to identify their obstacles and find ways and find strategies and ways to get around them. And that's so important. And I know I absolutely love your business name. So tell us about your business, because there's a whole story behind the name of your business, and I want you to share that.
Yeah, so my business is called Different Keys, and there is a slight double meaning there, because of course a key could be a musical key, but it's primarily playing with the idea of the key to success. And whenever we're browsing the internet, we have all of these clickbait things saying, here are the 3 key steps you need for success at this, or 5 ways to get success in this way. And they never work, because very simple answers don't work for everybody. So the key to success really is knowing that different people need different keys, because people are different. It's quite simple. And I really enjoy playing with that idea, that and I suppose that's the heart of coaching, is that trying to get to know somebody and their individual quirks, their personality, how they respond to things, how they think, because nobody's the same. People may have some similar experiences, but that will all be from their perspective. And I think it's quite incredible, really, that if we think that your life, Janine, my life, there's only one of us. We're the only person who was born at that time in that environment, had those experiences. There's nobody else like us. And I think the danger, especially with social media at the moment, is trying to make everybody the same, or you should be like this, or this is what you should do. And I think coaching, well, I like to think my coaching stands against that, and wants to encourage people to think of themselves as very unique individuals, that they can work with a coach to find out how to go about getting the best things that they want out of their lives.
I have a lot of stories that came from coaching that seem to ring with people a lot. One of my favorite stories is the guy that I was coaching for quite a while, and he couldn't get organized, and he was using all these beautiful spreadsheets, making all these beautiful spreadsheets for neurotypical people, and suddenly we find out that he needs paper pencil. And that's one of those epiphanies you can have during coaching. Do you have any favorite stories of working with somebody and having them go, aha, and yes?
I'm thinking about a recent client where I was. He worked through one of my coaching exercises that I've got on my blog, and this was one where you do an appraisal of your life, perhaps the past week. With one from the critic's perspective and the other from the cheerleader's perspective, and it was he found that, okay, well, the critic, okay, that voice is linked to his father and an ex, and so he realised that the critical voices in his head are actually not based on his reality, what he might think, but it's what people have told him and the criticisms that he's received. Whereas the cheerleader is much more like how he would like to think about himself. And I think that was that seemed to be something that really sort of struck home with a bit of awareness, not to listen to the critic all the time, because it's not always your best friend. Sometimes it's the voices of your past just repeating in your head, and it's not good to listen to that.
We can get in persona work and give those, like, the naysayer, they get their own little name, and the cheerleader gets their own little name. I like to do persona work because it allows you to kind of step out of the situation and observe it rather than being emotionally in the middle of it. And I have a lot of emotions. So, I kind of like persona work. It's fun.
Yeah, I think it's something I've got a lot from as well, I think. And it's just that ability to try and detach yourself from certain things and just observe and think about what's going on from sort of a step removed. And that really helps, I think, with the emotional stuff as well, just regulating that a little bit. Yeah, it's really nice when you see a client, their eyes change and they've had a realization, okay, yeah, I shouldn't be thinking like that, because actually, yeah, this is more what I want. So
yes, absolutely. Paul, I have to say we are just about out of time here, and we've covered a lot of good stuff. Before we go, I always like to ask one last question, and honestly, it's oftentimes different for everybody. And my question for you is, if you were going to be able to drop one major piece, a little nugget of information, of wisdom on a bunch of people, what would it be?
There's no one size fits all solution, because you're all different, and different people need different keys.
Oh, amen. I want to thank you so much for being on the show today, Paul. And I'm hoping that you had a good time being here.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Really good to talk about these things and find out some connections with your musical past and my musical past. That was really
Absolutely.
nice.
And so, yeah, I hope you'll come on again sometime. I
Sure.
really like to have repeat guests because I want people to get to know us a little bit before, you know, you hear a coach once on a show and you're like, yeah, that seems like an interest. But you hear them a little while and you get to know people, and I like that. So
Yeah.
I would love to have you on again. And in the meantime, if our butterflies on the wall enjoy our content and liked our conversation, what should they do?
They can have a look at my website. That's different keys, all one word, .online. And my website has a blog there. And you can also sign up for a free consultation. So you can have a chat to me and find out a little bit more about how I can help you.
And don't forget to like and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.